People rarely regret moving to the wrong city. They usually regret choosing the wrong version of that city. And Tucson is one of the easiest places for that to happen. Two families can move here for almost the exact same reasons and live 15 minutes apart and have completely different experiences. Not because one neighborhood is good and the other is bad, but because one fit their daily life and the other didn't. If Tucson is on your radar, this may be one of the most important conversations to have before making that decision. If you've been researching Tucson, you've probably heard the same things over and over. Sunshine, mountain views, affordability, a slower pace. And those things can absolutely be true. But the people who end up happiest here usually aren't the ones who heard the best sales pitch. They're the ones who understood what kind of place Tucson actually is. My job isn't to convince people to move here. It's to help people make a decision that they'll still feel good about 5 years from now. Because the real question isn't, is Tucson a good place to live? The better question is, does the life I want actually fit here? And that question usually determines whether people quietly fall in love with Tucson or quietly begin wondering if they made the right decision. Okay, let me ask you something. When you have an entire Saturday with nothing planned, what naturally excites you? Do you love having endless restaurants to choose from, large events every weekend, busy streets, constant activity, the feeling that something exciting is always happening? Or does your ideal day start a little slower? Coffee outside, a morning walk, a hike, time with family, or maybe simply having room to breathe. Now, neither answer is right, but they often point toward very different places that feel like home. Tucson generally rewards people who enjoy rhythm, space, nature, and a quieter pace more than constant stimulation. If you need the energy of places like Phoenix, Chicago, Los Angeles, or New York to feel energized, that's worth being honest about before making a move. One of the first questions people ask me is, how bad is summer? I actually think there's a better question. How willing am I to change my routine? Because summer doesn't just change the temperature, it changes daily life. People become active earlier, afternoons slow down. Evenings become social again. Outdoor activities shift, errands happen at different times. Families naturally adjust their routine. Some people settle into that rhythm almost immediately. Others wish life worked exactly as it did before. The difference usually isn't heat, it's adaptability. Another surprise for many people, especially those coming from newer metro areas, is that Tucson wasn't built all at once. It grew over many decades. That means historic neighborhoods sit beside newer master plan communities. Older shopping centers exist along modern developments. Luxury foothill communities established suburban neighborhoods and urban districts. Each feels different. Some people look at that and see inconsistency. Others see authenticity. If you're looking for a city where everything feels brand new and perfectly polished, Tucson may take some adjustment. If you're comfortable with places that have personality and history, you'll probably experience the city very differently. Some people arrive expecting Tucson to grow like every other fast-growing Sunbelt city. Faster, bigger, new developments everywhere. Tucson does continue to grow, but generally at a different pace. Some people appreciate that. Others become frustrated by it. Neither perspective is wrong, it's simply another example of fit. The question isn't, is Tucson growing? The question is, does this style of growth match what I'm looking for? If you're listening and thinking, I actually don't need constant activity, I enjoy a slower pace, I like places with character, then Tucson may fit you extremely well. Because the people who tend to love living here usually have something else in common. The people who connect with Tucson usually aren't chasing excitement. They're paying attention to everyday life, how mornings feel, how often they're outside, whether daily life feels rushed or intentional. They're not choosing a city, they're choosing how ordinary Tuesday mornings feel. And for many people, that's exactly what Tucson quietly delivers. Tucson attracts families, retirees, remote workers, military families, university professionals, and seasonal residents. On the surface, those people seem completely different, but many of them are looking for the same thing: a place where their environment supports the life they actually want to live. It's less about image and more about alignment. The people who usually settle in well don't rush. They spend time understanding how different parts of Tucson actually work, because Tucson isn't one market. It's many different lifestyles inside of one metropolitan area. That patience often prevents years of regret. This is probably the biggest misunderstanding I see. People spend months choosing the right house and only a few hours thinking about the area. But in Tucson, the neighborhood often shapes your daily experience more than the house itself. The version of Tucson that fits a retired couple isn't necessarily the version that fits a young family, or someone working remotely, or someone buying a winter home. Two people can both honestly say, "I absolutely love Tucson," while describing completely different lifestyles. That's why I spend far more time talking about how people live before we ever talk about homes. Here's what I've learned. Most people don't regret buying the house. They regret realizing months later that the life around the house never quite fit them. That's a much harder problem to solve, because replacing a kitchen is relatively easy. Replacing your daily routine isn't. The goal isn't finding the most beautiful home. The goal is finding the version of Tucson that fits the life you're trying to build. That's usually where long-term satisfaction comes from. If Tucson is something you're genuinely considering, don't make your decision based on one video. Spend time understanding what daily life here actually feels like. In the next video, we're going to talk about something I see surprisingly often: the things people regret after moving to Tucson, and why those regrets usually have very little to do with the house itself. If you're trying to make the best long-term decision, I think that conversation will be worth your time. Tucson isn't for everyone, and that's perfectly okay. The people who tend to love living here usually understood why it fit them before they ever packed the moving truck. Thanks for watching.